that we need to interrogate to some extent, and I think a conversation is needed related to these issues. So when we proceed, I think we will get some insights from you, and hopefully this is one of the first conversations, and we see what else to add on to this conversation of social policy. I think if we call it a series now or a Foley lecture every year where you are to talk, or we'll see what opportunities this provides us. But it's a very relevant issue that we need to speak to. And I saw recently in your country also something is happening there. So we'll hear what you say about that. So I don't want to waste more time and hand over to you as we enjoy your lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mutlong. And I'm not too sure how many minutes I have to give the lecture for, and then we'll have some interaction. But please feel free to let me know if I have to keep to certain times.
I think we take something like here at 11, let's see by 12, where we are, 12:15 maybe, and we can have a conversation there. Maybe by 12:30 latest, maybe we are done here.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank you again for this invitation to share my thoughts on the use of social policy as a tool for nation building. And I know that this started when we were talking about a deeper collaboration between my department, the Department of Political Science at the University of Ghana, and your department. I'm hoping that this process that we have started will be further deepened going forward, and we'll have a lot more collaborations in the nearest future. So thank you so much. So this morning, I'm going to look at nation building, social policy as a tool for nation building. And I'm going to proceed in this way. I would look at first social policy in developing countries, what it's used for in developing countries mostly. Then we'll look at the conceptual framework of nation building, identity politics, social citizenship, and then the question for transformative social policy. Then we'll look at the historical context to give us some broader base to then look at social policy, solidarity, and then the division with some examples. And then we'll draw some policy implications, after which we'll have a broader discussion on this. So we'll start off looking at social policy. Mostly social policy has been used to solve problems of poverty and issues of inequality. Recently Oxfam released a report which says that there is a growing inequality crisis. So one of the solutions mostly to inequality is social policy. But what at all is social policy? So when we talk of social policy, we are referring to the collective effort of the public to provide some level of well-being, to protect its citizens, and to preserve their lives within a given territory. So because it's a collective public effort, collective because some of it may come from the government, the state, some of it may come from our families, and especially in Africa, we have the indigenous social policy, which is based on this idea of reciprocity, where we believe that once you are taken care of to grow up, you also take care of the one who took care of you till they pass on to the next world. So it's built on this idea of reciprocity, is built on the idea of communalism. So Social policy is seen as this collective public effort to preserve and to protect our well-being. And in this way, it helps to deal with poverty and inequality. But beyond this, it's also used as a tool for redistribution. It's used to help with production, building the capacity of citizens to produce, to help with economic development. It helps with reproduction. In this sense, we are looking at the gender aspects, especially with the female population, giving them maternity leave so that they can help reproduce society in terms of our human resources, take care of the young ones, socialize them into our culture, our values. And the one that we are most interested in today is the use of social policy to build the nation, social integration, to develop a sense of social cohesion within our African societies. And this is really critical, especially in these days, because there is a growing disillusionment, especially among the youth, most of whom will probably graduate and they have no jobs to do. And so they are wondering, what is the use of the state? Some even question the democratic values that we are currently enjoying. They don't see the need for it, because if they finish and they don't have any sense of economic livelihood, then they begin to question. So there's this sense of disillusionment. And it's hoped that introducing social policy will help to solve some of these problems, improve social cohesion, build a nation in a post-colonial Africa. So this discussion then will be based on the idea of nation building. So the idea of nation building, or this concept of nation building, is in reference to a process where the state tries to foster a shared sense of identity and loyalty. So the state fosters this shared sense of identity and loyalty and belongingness among a diverse population. And diverse population, because in most of our countries, African countries, we have different groups, different ethnic groups, different races within some of the countries, different tribes, and sometimes people hold on to their primordial ties a lot more stronger than see themselves as nationalities of a particular country. So they see themselves, so in my country, I am from the Ewe tribe. And some people see themselves first as Eves before seeing themselves as Ghanaians. So the use of social policy then is to build this idea of Ghanaianness, where you see yourself more as a Ghanaian first before referring to your primordial ties. And this is based on the idea that we can construct the idea of a nation. This sense of nationality can be constructed. And if it can be constructed, then if it's a social frame which can be constructed, then it means that by the use of the social policy tools, we can create this idea of a social integrated community that see themselves as belonging to this collective. So that is one thought of it. The other thought is that the reason why social policy is critical, besides the various identities that we adhere to because of the colonial enterprise in most of the African countries, is that social policy then also helps to build this sense of social citizenship, where the state provides for its citizens. And so through the provision of various social services, people have a sense of social citizenship. They are linked to the state through what they get from the state. It develops this sense that the state is taking care of us and we belong to the state. So that's the social citizenship. And this is mostly developed through the inclusive and equitable social policies and programs. For instance, universal education, healthcare, social protection programs like the cash transfer programs or social grants, as we have in South Africa. And the idea of social citizenship, it's from Marshall, who introduced this idea in his work, and he links it with the fact that every citizen has three rights. You have the civil right, the political right, and the social right. And these three must work together. So if the person has political and civil rights, but the social right is not preserved, then people increasingly become disillusioned, even from performing their political responsibilities. So the social rights bind individuals to the state. Then Nkandawiri introduced the idea of the transformative social policy. The transformative social policy performs 5 functions. The 5 functions that the transformative social policy performs is redistribution, production, protection, reproduction, and social integration. And his proposal challenges the narrow view of social policy, which is just providing safety nets for citizens. So he argued that social policy should be deployed to perform multiple functions, which includes all of this that I've mentioned: redistribution, production, reproduction, protection, and also for social integration. And in our context, this is really relevant because social policy then aligns with the broader goals of structural transformation and inclusive development, if it's going to perform all these functions that Nkandawiri has emphasized as critical in the social pursuit. But more importantly, he emphasizes the role of the state in spearheading these functions. So even though our families provide some social support, the transformative social policy will be spearheaded by the state, the government, to attain this objective of social transformation and inclusive development. This then brings us to the historical context, because Nkandawiri's thought builds on what has been the case in most African countries from the colonial era. So most countries in Africa experience colonialism, colonized by colonial masters, etc. But the key thing in relation to social policy is that the social policies during the colonial era were discriminatory. It excluded majority of the population, especially the African indigenous population, were excluded from the social policies that were provided under colonialism. Where it even extends to the indigenous population is discriminatory. It's not the same services, the quality of services may not be the same. And so our nationalist leaders fought on this. So one of the ways they mobilize people is that if we are in charge of our own affairs, we'll be able to provide equitably to the whole society. So by coming into political office then, by gaining independence, we will be able to provide social policies that will reverse the effects of the discriminatory, exclusive policies that we experienced under the colonial government. So we have nationalist leaders like Nkrumah from Ghana, Modibo Keita, Sekou Touré, Nnamdi Azikiwe from Nigeria, and others who embarked on social programs, extensive social programs, immediately after independence. And these programs were designed to bring the fruits of the social and economic growth to all sections of the population because of the discrimination that was experienced during colonialism. These were used to forge national unity, legitimize the state, and in some settings, try to erode or more or less water down this linkage to our primordial ethnic and tribal cleavages for us to see ourselves as a nation, a Ghanaian nation, as a Nigerian nation, as a South African nation or a Tanzanian nation, not as belonging to specific tribes or specific ethnicities. So that was what social policy was deployed for. And during those days, there was talk of African unity. So the social project or the national project was also to form a sense of Pan-Africanism, where if I travel from Ghana to a different African country, I will not be discriminated against. It's the same policies you enjoy there. And in those days where they were contemplating forming a politically united Africa, countries that were ahead of the others were supported those that are still under colonialism with resources to help them rise out of colonialism, sometimes with men to fight independent struggles. And so that was how it started as a collective.
Sorry, you're muted, Doctor. Unmute.
Yes, I just realized I'm unmuted now. Thank you. So it was a colonial, an enterprise of our nationalist leaders to try and forge a Pan-Africanist thought, collective expression through these policies. However, these thoughts or this pursuit, this enterprise was cut short. In some of our countries, there were military coups that cut short some of these things. And where you are seen as pursuing, because most of the leaders who pursued this social social policy, most of them proclaimed themselves as communists. Some were pursuing the idea of socialism. And so they were seen as belonging to the East in terms of ideological divide. They were seen as being more leftist. And during those periods, there was a deep divide globally. And so where you are seen as belonging to the left, Western powers could instigate your overthrow. And there are some theories that most of the coups that we saw on the continent were facilitated by outside forces because of the ideological thought. So we had military leaders that took over. We had some leaders that were put in place because of these conflicts of ideas. Now, coming down to about the 1980s, most African countries, because of economic crisis within the 70s, had to go to the IMF for help. And the structural adjustment policies cut short the social policy enterprise that was started under our nationalist leaders. So with the structural adjustment policies, there was limited state participation in the provision of social services. Now the private sector was to be encouraged to provide those things. So the market was to be in the helm of affairs in a neoliberal setting. And this, from UNICEF's report, Adjustment with a Human Face, disintegrated the social fabric of most African countries, because then the provision that was to come from the state was no longer forthcoming. And so people have to go to the market to be able to buy those services, buy health, buy education, buy capacity building, which was formerly provided for by the state to help develop our nations. So that is where we saw the disintegration from. And this has grown beyond the 1980s structural adjustment, because we are still in a neoliberal age where we have the private sector providing social services. And so within most of our societies, we see this deep divide between those who can afford the services provided by the private sector and those who cannot afford it. And so they have to wait on government and benefit from public services. And some of the public services that we have access to may not be as of the highest quality like what we have in the private sector. So there is this division even within the public sector of the social provisions that we have. So what we do now is to identify specific groups in what has been mostly referred to as the social protection paradigm, to identify. We see specific programs, like in the case of Ghana, we have the free SHS program. That's the free education at the secondary level for any Ghanaian student who is in the second cycle institutions. They get to attend school for free at the secondary level. That is general. But we have the national insurance scheme where you have to pay premiums, a yearly premium to be on it, though it's highly subsidized. Then we also have the LEAP programs, which is a targeted program to those who are extremely poor. Then in Rwanda, for instance, they have the primary healthcare program. This is general, it's universal. So most often, the universal programs are able to preserve a sense of social identity, national identity. It fosters a sense of inclusivity. In Botswana, they have the universal pensions, which also build a sense of inclusivity. And then the social grants that you have in South Africa, and other programs, education, health programs, which all of these build a sense of solidarity among citizens. But it can also lead to divisions where it's not done well, especially with the targeted programs, because sometimes we have problems with inclusion errors, and we may have exclusion errors, people who actually need to be on those programs who are not put on those programs, and those who probably are not suitable for the programs. They are not extremely poor, but due to targeting errors, they may be put on those programs. So to be able to build a sense of national solidarity, creating shared experiences, and promoting equitable citizenship, then social policies, inclusive social policies, are critical, where people, because we as citizens, we enjoy what the state is providing, we see ourselves, we identify ourselves as belonging to that nation. The programs do not, like the universal primary care, the social grants, they do not only provide the services needed, which are very essential, but then they enforce or they reinforce the idea that all citizens regardless of their religion, regardless of their region, regardless of their ethnicity, tribe, they are all entitled to the state support. And so they see this creates a sense of allegiance to the state. And social policy can also be used to rebuild trust. For instance, in Rwanda, social policy has been used to rebuild trust and solidarity in a post-conflict society. And it's grounded in principles of equity and community participation, which aligns with the idea of a transformative social policy as identified by Nkandawire in his work on the transformative social policy, the various aspects of the transformative social policy. However, even though social policy can unify, it has the potential to unify, it can also create divisions where it is not implemented unevenly, where it's not implemented evenly, where it is not universalized, or where social policy is politicized. So even though you have a robust system, it can create some problems where the program is politicized, where we see it that this belongs to a specific group of people. Then there can be divisions between the in group and those that see themselves as the out group. So there is the importance then, like what Dr. Modlong mentioned, of citizens, the xenophobic attacks, and the division within society of the division between they and us. These people are coming to take what belongs to us. And they do not belong, they do not contribute, or they are not part of us, but then they've come to take from us. So these ethnic tensions, these divisions in society can also be as a result of the existence of social policy, where there is social policy and its targeted nature or its politicized nature can create these divisions within society. And so these divisions then requires that we frame social policies to be inclusive of not only our citizens, but also even of residents and of migrants. So for instance, in Nigeria, there is a fragmentation based on the various regions, but also on religious basis. So where the social policies are uneven, then it deepens existing inequalities, because then some of the regions will be more equitable, or in terms of equity will be promoted in some of the regions than in others. And this can create the divisions within society. Or the policies may favor one particular group against the other. So we need a coherent national social policy framework, which will be equitable, because in terms of equity, some regions will need some policies more than others. Some may need more of health care than education. Some may need more of capacity building than housing. So we look at what does the region need and try to provide it in an inclusive and equitable way, so that the sense of citizenship can be promoted. And so we need social policies that are not only sound in terms of the technical expertise, having to do with identifying what we need for each of the citizens within our population, but we also need it to be broad-based, cohesive, so that it doesn't deepen existing cleavages or existing divisions within society. Universalizing access to services have been seen to be the type of service, social service, that promotes a sense of national solidarity. And also, we will need, especially in societies with deep divisions, civic education, where we promote the idea of a one society, one Africa, the idea of a Pan-African system. Promoting that will help us to see ourselves as all Africans and not seeing one group as you are from this place and we are from the other place. And so you do not deserve the services that we are enjoying. And in societies that have a lot of migrants, like in South Africa too, there may be the need to have legal protections for migrants and for minority groups in our various African countries. Also, where we have regional solidarity. So our leaders wanted to build a politically united Africa. If we have a politically united Africa, then these questions of social policy, and you come from Ghana, you come from Nigeria or South Africa, and so you don't deserve to be this, would become more, it will lose its potency, because then we all see ourselves as one. So there is need for us to promote regional solidarity through the various institutions, regional bodies that we have, the African Union, and then within the various sub-regions that we have. So there is a proposal that we can start strengthening the regional blocks first. So for instance, we have the SADC region could be strengthened. We have the ECOWAS, which is the West African state, could be strengthened, the Central. So we strengthen all these regional blocks. Then through that, we build the African bloc altogether, the continent-wide unity. And with this, once there is that unity where we are together, it will be easier to promote a sense of belongingness and people supporting each other than where we are rather fighting each other. And critical in all of this is dialogue, stakeholder engagement, participatory policy making, where people are, the community is involved in the decision process to come up with policies, to come up with programs, to help build this sense of community, this sense of nationhood, this sense of political identity linked to the whole community, but not linked to deep cleavages or sessions within the society. Thank you so much for your attention, and we can have a discussion now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Foley. And this was very insightful. And before I could maybe speak or even ask anything, I would like to maybe hand over to the students. If there is anyone with a question, comment, or aspect of clarity, you can start raising your hand, and then we will acknowledge you. There, as you were speaking, Dr. Foley, there were comments about whether students will get an opportunity to access your presentation. And I would then maybe pass that message that when we are done, or once you have time to send through the presentation, that we can share with the students. And then we can now, colleagues, start contributing to the discussion. If there's any observation or any question that you need Dr. Foley to expand on, please state so that we can acknowledge you.
Okay. So whilst we are waiting for that, I'll send the slides to you so that you can share with them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And anyone with a question or a comment? Tabo, let's see. There's 1, 2 hands. Okay, I'll give first to Tabo and then Tabo.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tabo.
All right,
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. And I would like to take this opportunity ever since that I joined the class very late. However, there are some concepts which I missed when joining this lecture session. I wanted to understand the nation building, that in order for a state or maybe a nation to be built, it must have a diverse population, which sooner or later can have a social policies. Or firstly, is there a difference between a state and a nation? I want to understand the difference between a state and a nation and how they differ in terms of social policies and populations.
Dr. Foley, unmute.
Thank you.
Hey,
thank you so much, Tabo, for that question. Yes, so there is a difference between the state and a nation. So mostly when we refer to a nation, it's the sense of belongingness. People see themselves as one, and having the sense of belongingness, that is the nation aspect of it. The state then becomes our government. So in Ghana, we have the states, or in your country, the South, you have the state, which will be our government, the leadership, the institutions that are in charge of running the country. They are the states. Then we have the nations. So in some of our countries, we have several nations, people who see themselves as one, belonging to particular ethnicities. Some of them have same language. They trace themselves to the same ancestors, for instance, and they have that sense of belongingness, a closely knit society. So that's the sense of a nation. Even though that is the case within modern states, this sense of a nation can be created within the larger society. So nation building then is the process of trying to forge this sense of belongingness to the state that has been put together, because most of, in terms of the African politics, in terms of African history, we didn't start off as a Ghanaian state, Nigerian state, South African state. We had different kingdoms, traditional kingdoms, where those people within those kingdoms see themselves as a nation. But colonialism drew some arbitrary borders, and so put all these nations in some of our countries. We have about 3, 4, 5, 10 tribes put together as a Ghanaian state, for instance. And so how people do not see themselves as Ghanaians belonging to this state. They see themselves more as belonging to their various tribes or ethnic groups. So the process of nation building then is to try to direct this allegiance that we have to our ethnic groups to the state. In some countries, which are described as nation states, some Asian countries where you have an overlap, an alignment between the various groups and the states, where you probably have just one broad group as constituting the state, it's easier. But where you have divisions, diverse populations, then you need to actively pursue the process of nation building to be able to develop this sense of identity to the state so that we can have a nation built out of the various diverse populations that we have.
Thank you. There was, I don't know, Sizakele or Zizakele. The hand is gone now. Maybe they are answered. Is there, let's start there. Do you still want to say anything, Zizakele? Okay, let's pass. Katiso.
Good day, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay. Doctor, we currently speaking about social policy, and then we all agree that social policy is a response to fight poverty and inequality in a country, right? So I also wanted to quote Makwandari, as you said. Then he argued that social policy should perform multiple tasks. So my question is, since social policy looks like maybe it looks good on a paper, so why is it so hard to be implemented? Yeah, that's my question, because I see it's a good thing. It can help citizens of a country to better their lives. So why is it so difficult for it to be implemented? Thank you. That's my question.
All right. Thank you so much for your question. Yes. Thandika wanted, or he proposed, that social policy should perform multiple functions. And like you rightly said, it looks very good on paper. And not only on paper, though, because some countries have started it. They tried it before this period that we are in now. Some of our nationalist leaders tried this idea of a transformative social policy, which performs multiple functions. But over the years, the transformation from a state-led development project to a market-led development project built mostly on neoliberal ideas has shifted this proposal for social policy to perform this multiple tasks. Now, in a neoliberal setting, the market is to provide these things. And if the market is going to provide, for instance, education, health, then it means that if you are going to access it, you must have the means to pay for it. So that is one difficulty with it, because if you don't have effective demand on the service that is being provided, so effective demand means that if I'm demanding for better health care or quality health care, I should also have the means to pay for that health care that I am looking out for, right? But not everyone in our society have the means to pay for that health care that we need. So there is the need for us, our states, our political leaders, the institutions that we have put in place to provide this service then to society, so that if I don't have the money to pay for good health care, I don't really have to worry about it because the state is providing it. Now, it's difficult for the state, or what we have heard from our leaders and from some of our ministers of finance, is that it's very expensive to provide this. And the critical aspect is that most of our tax systems are not well developed. Most African countries, the tax-based system to be able to tax, because social policy in advanced countries, in Sweden, in Canada, is provided for by the state, but it's citizens who provide resources through taxation for that to be. So there is this redistributive aspect, which Tandika talked about, that we are all paying taxes. Some are paying more than others. And what is generated from all of us is used to provide for those who are less fortunate, those who do not have the means. But then there is a minimum standard of living that is provided for the whole of society. To be able to do that, we need to strengthen our tax system, where we can tax from society to be able to build society. On the other hand, what we see is that most societies, most African societies are highly informal. And so someone is selling at the roadside, someone is farming, and they are not captured on the tax platform of the government. So government ends up taxing just a few formal sector workers, and that is what they use to provide for the other public services that we have. So for us to be able to pursue this idea of transformative social policy, which will be inclusive, which will be equitable, which will protect the less fortunate within our society, then one of the things that we need to do is to look at our tax systems, the tax frameworks that we have. How do we include even those who are in the informal sector? Those who, like we say, work from hand to mouth, they are on the streets. There is no formal way of checking what their incomes are for the day, for instance. So we have to develop a system to be able to tax all this. And once we have resources coming into government coffers, we can call on government, we can demand some of these services to be provided. I hope this helps.
Thank you. It helps, Doctor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thabo, we'll
Yes.
come to you because you recently spoke. I want to see if there's not anybody different who has a view or question, and then we'll come to you. Just bear with me.
All right, sir.
Okay, Thabo, you can continue.
All right, sir. I wanted to ask a question, but however, also comment on the social policy. I'm looking at the current situation of our country, like with regards to illegal migrants and migrants which are currently on our country. However, social policies supposed to build solidarity within the citizens of our country. But however, we have illegal migrants which they gain interest within our country based on the social policies we have. For example, the social grants or child support grants. Some of the immigrants which come from other countries like Zimbabwe, they come here without having the proper papers which symbolizes that they are the citizens of South Africa. But however, they create babies within the country, then which means their babies end up having our country's citizens. Then sooner or later they will be covered by this social policy. So my question is, if we continue at this rate, will this social policy reach an end, or will this resource reach an end? And however, ever since that there's been a COVID-19 relief grant, wasn't it supposed to be implemented only for the period of COVID-19? But however, the program is still ongoing, even if the disease has been quietly dismantled. So why don't that money which is being contributed towards the social grant and also the COVID-19 relief grant maybe being put to good use of creating opportunities for enriching our people in terms of education, providing more opportunities for our people to go out in other countries to study instead of paying them for something which has ended a long time ago. I hope you got my question, Dr. Foley.
Yes, I'll try and comment on it based on what I think I heard. If I missed anything, kindly draw my attention to it. So if I got you right, you talked about illegal migrants enjoying the social services that are provided, and then the COVID relief grant, which is still ongoing because some of the COVID effects are still there. And so you are asking, why can't they move some of these grants to build on capacity and to support the population? So the issue of illegal migrants in various countries is quite a tricky one, because it has to do with the institution that is supposed to check who comes in and who doesn't come in. So when we talk of illegal migrants, then the person is not supposed to be there, and the person is there, and so it takes on a whole legal aspect when we look at it in terms of social provision. So I will, because of the legal and illegal status divisions within the migrants in a particular country, we'll first look at the legal migrants, and then maybe we'll look at the illegal migrants, and then we'll come to the COVID relief, the question on COVID relief. So even for migrants, and it's not only a South African problem, it's a global problem. Even in advanced countries, we have contests or people contesting migration, that people have come into our country, and they've come to take over what should rightfully belong to us. So we have this sense being expressed in the US, we have this sense being expressed in the UK, in Canada, in all these advanced countries, Australia. They're all talking about these things. So in their society, we have, like in South Africa, we have the legal migrants they have the legal status as migrants or as residents within the South African community. And as residents and as people who contribute to the economy, they benefit from the social services provided for by the state. And as is the case in other countries. Then we also have the other group, who are the illegal migrants who come in. Now, with the illegal migrants, within an African setting, so when it comes to social policy, within an African setting, we trace it. So the question of social policy, the social supports that we have within our communities, is that historically, when someone shows up in your house, someone you don't even know, someone who is traveling, a strange person comes to your house, in an African setting, this person is given food to eat. So the belief is that within our African countries, we should have this sense of empathy, this sense of humanism, this sense that we promote from the larger African Union perspective, which says that you are because I am because we are. A sense of collectivity, communalism, which is within our African society. We should, based on that, to treat those people who may be illegal migrants, we should treat them with some sense of brotherliness, because of these values that we preserve within our African setting. So that is where the argument is from, that even though they are illegal and you may have to deal with them from that perspective, you should also have some empathy, and as a community, as a country, also provide them some resources. And if they even have to be returned to their country so that they come through the appropriate channels, it wouldn't be the same as we would expect, like you would catch a thief and you are beating the person. It wouldn't be the same, because you see this person more as a brother, probably didn't take the right step to come to your country. So you approach it in that sense, from that value-based treatment of that person. Now, there's resources that are given to these people, because most of our countries, once a child is birthed, the child becomes a citizen. So the citizen, which is the child of this illegal migrant, that child deserves to have the social services that is being provided for the larger community. So this needs to be a larger conversation needs to be had, community dialogue, where civic. So one of the things I talked about in terms of policy implication is that we need to have a deeper civic engagement, a deeper community conversation around these issues, so that the appropriate decisions will be taken to solve this problem in a more communal way. Then the COVID relief, you mentioned COVID relief, and I also want to mention that even in my country, our COVID, we were collecting COVID levy to be able to provide some of the resources that we needed at the height of the pandemic, and we are still collecting it. People are fighting against it, that we shouldn't collect this levy again. COVID is over, thankfully. And so the levy that we collect that has been charged, we should stop. The government is considering it, but currently if you go to the shop and you buy, they take the value added tax, they take the COVID levy, they take the health levy, they take all sort of levies. And so it's a huge burden on society. So this can be redirected to build a community, the COVID relief. But there are other like people who have suffered from COVID, what has been referred to as the long effects of the pandemic, which some communities are still suffering from. Some people are still suffering from the effects of the COVID. And so decision can be made to time it out after a number of years, say a number of 5 years, that this relief will be timed out. So at which point the long-term effects of the pandemic may have been dealt with, or people would have been supported to be able to come out of it. So that is my take on what you said. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the clearance there. I won't be having any further questions, as I want to provide other students with the opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Foley, you spoke, and in one of the things you touched on was this issue of identifying with an ethnic community or a tribal community first, than identifying as a social citizen or with the state. Now, I want to ask Ore, in your research, to what extent has social policy been used by politicians maybe to engender those fragmentations, where me being a Mosotho, a Motswana, is more important because I can access resources than identifying as a South African. Instead of my claim as South African doesn't work. It doesn't give me access. So that's one aspect. And secondly, related to what maybe Tabo, I think it's Tabo, was talking about, how residents from neighboring countries cross over to another to access resources. You did say this is a global issue. What that movement, is it mainly linked to what you said about an informal economy, or what's driving that trend? Because there are those who move to other countries to access. And what about their countries? I think in the politics of access to basic services, this is what the discourse raises, that, hey, your country must supply. So why are those countries failing to supply? So for me, maybe those are the two things.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. And I think I'll start off with the last question. I'll comment on it, since it's just coming off from the response that I was talking about with the students earlier on. So I'll take it from this perspective that maybe I'll cite Ghana as an example. So within our border communities, our eastern and western borders, we have communities that extend. So there is one of our ethnic groups is divided. One part is in Ghana, the other part is in Cote d'Ivoire. And then on the eastern side, you have one part of the group in Ghana's Volta region. And then the other part is in Togo. So they move from one of the communities to the other one. They are going to family. So that one is there. Then you also have relationships that are built informally. And so the person says, oh, okay, you are this. Oh, okay, come and visit me. And the person comes. Sometimes they don't go through the appropriate procedure to even come to the country, but they still come. And we see them, we are, or the state is expected to see these people as part of our communities. So during our election, for instance, the Ghanaian state decided that we are going to block our borders to prevent these people from coming in. But the people in Ghana are saying, these people are our brothers. We belong to the same tribe. Why are you not allowing them to come in? So there is this complex and a nuance, if you like, a nuanced approach that we need to adopt when it comes to these things, especially where there is this straddling of various ethnicities, maybe extending beyond one country into the other country. And so people move in and move out, and because they are coming to their family. So that is there. Then there are people who also move to different countries. So you have some Ghanaians, some Nigerians, Zimbabweans moving to South Africa because of economic pursuits. So people are looking for greener pastures. They see South Africa is prosperous than where they are. They go there to seek for greener pastures. And to go there, there are processes to go. And so if, for instance, there is a lecturing job in South Africa, in your university, it was advertised internationally and I applied for it. I moved into South Africa as a legal migrant after obtaining all the records, the papers that I need, and I'm working in South Africa. I'm a legal migrant in South Africa. I'm there to work. It's also for economic, because of economic interest. That's why I'm there to work. But besides my economic interest, I'm also contributing to the growth of the South African society, to the growth of the South African economy. And because I'm contributing to the South African economy, then the state also provides me with some services because of my contribution to it. So that is the second aspect of the question you asked. Then you asked, should the countries they are coming from, should they contribute to the care of their citizens in the other country? That raises a bigger issue, because then it means that if, for instance, maybe you will say that this is limited only to those who are illegal migrants. But then if the country will contribute, if Ghana, for instance, asks me to go to Nigeria to go and do something on behalf of the country, Ghana is supposed to take care of me there, right? So Ghana will contribute to my upkeep within that foreign country. But if the country has not asked you to go in there to do something, to perform any task, then the country may find it difficult to provide you with some resources in there, because one, you didn't tell this country A, that I'm moving to country B and seeking the permission that all the services or the social provisions that you are to give me in my country, please send it to me in this other country that I'm going to stay in. Because then if you are in your own country, you contribute to the economy, and so the state must provide for you. But if you are in a different country and you are contributing to that country's economy, it becomes difficult to ask the other country to provide for that individual. So that is, these are the layers within it. And where the person is illegal, then it further complicates the issues. On a broader African argument, though, or from an ideological standpoint, an African ideological standpoint, though, we see someone moving from Zimbabwe to South Africa, people belonging to the same region, the same context, the same, let's say, local setting. We see them, like I mentioned earlier on, as people belonging to each other, as brothers. So, I mean, Ghana, you are in South Africa, but I see you as my brother, right? So if you come to Ghana, then I shouldn't look at you as someone who is alien, but I should see you as my brother. So these are some of the thoughts that have been put forward in terms of this, the movement, the reasons why people move, and the question of should countries pay for their citizens who move to other countries. Now, when it comes to identity politics, where people see themselves as belonging to specific groups, I'm a Kikuyu, I'm a Zulu, or I'm an Ewe, or I'm an Ashanti, or I'm an Akan. These are the perspectives that we have from our primordial ties, the ties that we have to our ethnicities or to our tribal groups. These ties, however, can degenerate into social divisions within our broader countries, because now all of us have been boxed into one country, and so we are expected to belong to that one country. So if you are in Ghana, whether you are an Ashanti, an Ewe, a Dagomba, or a Mamprosi person, you are now a Ghanaian. Where we have policies that target specific groups, that will create further divisions. But policies to promote national integration or social integration then will say that this program or this health care is for all Ghanaians. It doesn't matter if you are an Ashanti, an Ewe, a Dagbani, or a Mamprosi, or if it's in Kenya, it doesn't matter if you're a Maasai or a Kikuyu. All of us is provided by the state of Kenya for all Kenyans, right? So then the specific cleavages, the gradual access to state provision, then it's supposed to weaken the specific cleavages to our indigenous groups. So the more the states provide for our social needs, then it weakens this ethnic cleavages, seeing ourselves first as a Kikuyu first before a Kenyan will be weakened gradually. So that is why we see social policy as critical in building social cohesion or building a sense of national integration. So far, I haven't seen countries having specific policies for ethnic groups, like social policies that target specific groups, unless it's an affirmative action that says, which is to correct some injustices that have been done to a particular group over time. And so they put in place this program to try to deal with this injustice. And most of these policies are even timed. So you have maybe a 10-year program, an affirmative action, or a quota system to try to correct some injustices within society. So the cleavages, the difficulty with social policy now is the targeting. The targeting is mostly based on economic variables, where we say you belong to the extremely poor group, and so because you're extremely poor, then you benefit from so and so services. And because you are not extremely poor, you don't get any of it. So that is where the divisions then come in. Unless it is done right with a lot of education, it can create a sense of division within society instead of building the society together. Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Foley. We really appreciate this time with you, and I think, as we said, it is a start. We can call you again, or maybe when you have something, you can say, "Hey guys, I just thought of this. Can we have a chat?" So you are welcome, and I think we will see you as a friend, of our subject group. So be very free to interact with us anytime. And then here we are done, colleagues. It's not a question, but if there are 2-3 people who can express their view, like just say, "Congrats, doctor." I saw some hands clap there. Congratulate her vocally. Those 2-3 who can thank her for being with us, and then we can leave. I'm not sure who recorded. There's a fellow here who started the recording. Once it's, maybe you can now stop recording, and then we can move on and share that link with us.